January 26, 1945. 2:20 p.m., the icy fields near Hautesvier, France. Amid the smoke and confusion of the fight, something unbelievable was taking place. A lone American soldier on a flaming tank destroyer was methodically stopping a whole German company's push forward. The top-notch mountain soldiers of the 2nd Guibergs Division, experienced fighters moved from Norway just for this attack, were being stopped completely by what looked to be a boy who couldn't weigh more than 110 pounds. Behind the German lines, 6 tanks, Panzer IVs and tank destroyers that had smashed opposition all over Europe, sat stuck. Their leaders too stunned to move forward without foot soldiers who were being systematically brought down by a single American. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from, and if stories of heroes appearing in the darkest hour thrill you, then hit subscribe, because we're just getting started. The 250 men of the strengthened German company had walked into what German military thinking said was not possible. One soldier holding a spot against a full-scale attack with different types of forces. The numbers were grim. 40 tired Americans against 250 skilled German mountain soldiers and 6 tanks. According to all rules of warfare, the American position should have been taken over in moments. Instead, for one unbelievable hour, 2nd Lieutenant Audie Leon Murphy would change the way war was fought. The journey to that flaming tank destroyer started in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas, where Audie Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, to very poor farmers. The 6th of 12 children, Murphy's childhood was marked by extreme hardship and duty. His father left the family when Audie was 12. His mother passed away from heart and lung sickness in 1941, leaving the 16-year-old to be the main provider for his younger brothers and sisters. "If I don't hit what I aim at, my family doesn't eat tonight," young Murphy had said to his neighbor Monroe Hackna, explaining his amazing aim. The boy could drop a running rabbit at 50 yards with a .22 rifle that most people couldn't hit a barn with. Each bullet was money the family didn't have. Each miss meant hungry stomachs. Under such strain, Murphy gained a shooter's eye that would later frighten German soldiers across 3 nations. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Murphy saw his opportunity. The military provided a steady wage, 3 meals a day, and the chance to send cash home to help his siblings. But even enlisting proved hard for the small teenager. Standing just 5'5" and weighing 110 lbs, Murphy was turned down by both the Marines and Navy as too small. The Army paratroopers would not accept him. At last, the regular Army infantry took him on June 30th, 1942, after his sister Karen gave a fake document saying he was 18. Private First Class David Mouse McClure, who went through basic training with Murphy at Camp Walters, Texas, later remembered, "We all thought he was a mascot at first. This kid, who looked about 14 and weighed nothing. The drill sergeants were very hard on him, called him baby. But there was something about his eyes. When he was on the rifle range, those baby blue eyes went as cold as winter. He never missed, not even once." Murphy's change from a Texas farm boy to a deadly fighter started during the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, landed at Licata as part of Patton's 7th Army. In the mountains of Sicily, Murphy found something that would bother him forever. He was unusually skilled at fighting. His country upbringing had taught him to move quietly, to use the land for cover, to shoot fast and on target. Near Palermo, when his unit was stuck under machine gun fire, Private Murphy made his way around the enemy spot, took out the crew with grenades, and used their weapon on the retreating soldiers. Captain Paul Harris suggested him for the Bronze Star, writing, "This soldier shows a natural talent for battle that is remarkable in someone so young and new to it." The Italian campaign changed Murphy from a good soldier to a legendary fighter. At the Volturno River crossing in October 1943, Murphy fought off a German counterattack by himself when his squad was wiped out. Using a borrowed sniper rifle, he killed 5 German soldiers at distances over 300 yards. For this, he was given the Distinguished Service Cross. Staff Sergeant William Polson described Murphy's fighting style. Murph didn't fight with anger. That's what was scary about him. He fought cold, deliberate, like he was doing math. See a German? Take out the German, move to the next German. No feeling, no pause, just deadly effectiveness. At Anzio, that bloody beach Churchill called the Wildcat, Murphy got his first Silver Star for taking out a German tank with a bazooka at very close range. By the invasion of southern France in August 1944, Murphy had made it through Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and Rome. He had been hurt twice, given many medals, and had built a name among both Americans and Germans as someone to be feared. During the push through southern France, when his lieutenant was killed in an ambush near Montélimar, Sergeant Murphy took charge of the platoon. Setting up a defense with 18 men against a German company of over 100, Murphy held a key crossroads for 2 hours, personally responsible for 15 enemy deaths. His leadership got him a promotion on the battlefield to second lieutenant on October 14, 1944. By January 1945, as Company B got near the Colmar pocket, Murphy was no longer the baby-faced new soldier from 1942. Battle had made him older than his 19 years. He had seen most of his original friends killed or hurt. He had personally killed over 100 enemy soldiers. The Colmar pocket was everything awful about winter fighting, an 850-square-mile German area west of the Rhine. It was the last piece of French land the Germans held. Hitler had ordered it to be kept at all costs. The Germans had strengthened it with their best remaining units, including the 2nd Mountain Division, specially trained for winter battle in Norway. For Company B, the situation was hopeless. In 5 days of fighting before January 26th, they had lost 102 men and all officers except Murphy were killed or sent away. From a full company of 187 men, they were down to 40 able men. Murphy himself was fighting with a leg injury from shrapnel he got 2 days before, but he hadn't told anyone. Private Anthony Abramsky described their state. "We were finished, done. Most of us hadn't slept in 3 days. We'd been eating cold K rations when we could eat at all. Half the guys had frostbite. Our machine guns were freezing. We tried all night to dig foxholes, but the ground was like iron. When morning came and we saw our position stretched along the wood's edge with open fields before us, we knew we were easy targets. January 26, 1945 started gray and bitterly cold. The temperature stayed around freezing with a wind that went through the thickest coats. Snow was 3 feet deep in some spots, though constant shelling had turned much of the area into a moon-like landscape of frozen mud and ice. Company B held spots along the edge of the Riedveer forest, looking out across nearly a mile of open land toward the German-held town of Holzwihr. Murphy had placed his worn-out company as well as he could. 2 M10 tank destroyers were his only anti-tank defense. His foot soldiers were spread thin along the trees. He had set up his command post in a ditch that gave some cover and a good view of the approaching land. Field telephone lines linked him to artillery support, his only real chance of stopping a strong attack. The German attack was started by an artillery storm that began at 1 p.m. Shells exploding in the treetops rained deadly pieces on Company B's positions. The shelling went on for 30 minutes, but to the men going through it, it felt like hours. At 2:00 p.m., the German attack appeared. Private First Class Donald Ekman was the first to see them. You could see the flags on the antennas of the German tanks, 6 of them spread out in an attack line. And behind them, my goodness, there must have been 250-foot soldiers, all in white snow camouflage, coming across that field like ghosts. Murphy's first move was to call for artillery help. But artillery alone wouldn't stop this attack. The Germans were too spread out, too many, and moving too fast. At 600 yards, the M10 tank destroyers started shooting. Their first shots missed. The crews were tired and numb from the cold. Return fire from the German tanks was quick and destructive. An 88mm shell hit the back M10 right in the turret. The tank destroyer caught fire, its crew jumping out and running for the woods. The front M10, trying to move to a better shooting spot, slid into a ditch, its tracks unable to grip the frozen ground. Its crew left it and pulled back. Around 2:20 p.m., with both tank destroyers gone and German foot soldiers getting within 200 yards, Murphy made the choice that would get him the Medal of Honor. He told his remaining men to fall back to prepared spots in the woods, but he did not pull back himself. Instead, Murphy ran through the artillery fire to the burning M10 tank destroyer. The vehicle was completely on fire at the back where the 88mm shell had set off its fuel and ammo. Black smoke came from the body. The heat was strong enough to be felt 30 feet away. At any second, the rest of the ammo could blow up, making the vehicle a huge bomb. Murphy climbed onto the tank destroyer and took control of its 50 caliber M2 Browning machine gun. From this higher spot, he had a clear view to shoot across the approaching German groups. But he was also completely out in the open. A single person outlined against the sky with no cover but the smoke from the burning vehicle under him. Private First Class Anthony Abramski watched from the trees. I saw Lieutenant Murphy climb on top of the burning tank destroyer while bursts of machine gun fire were heard. Pistol fire from the advancing infantry hit against the body and tread. It was the greatest show of guts and bravery I have ever seen. The M2 Browning was a terrible weapon in skilled hands. It fired 550 rounds a minute with a good range of 2,000 meters. Its half-inch bullets could go through light armor and tear human bodies apart. In Murphy's hands, it became a tool of exact destruction. For the next hour, Murphy used the heavy machine gun with amazing success. All through the fight, he stayed in phone contact with artillery support, calling in fire missions very close to his own spot. The mix of his machine gun fire and the artillery he guided made a wall of steel that the German foot soldiers could not get through. Sergeant Elma Broly watched from the wood's edge. The German infantrymen got within 10 yards of Lieutenant Murphy, who killed them in the clearings, in the fields, in the woods, wherever he saw them. The weather conditions made Murphy's stand even more amazing. The frozen ground had stopped them from digging in properly. How well they could see changed as cloudy skies sometimes cleared. The extreme cold hurt weapon performance and had left soldiers dealing with frostbite after days of non-stop fighting. Murphy's spot on the M10 gave him key advantages that he used skillfully. The tank destroyer sat a little higher, looking over the German approach path, giving him great fields of fire. The 50 caliber's 2,000-meter effective range meant he could hit targets at the farthest distance, while the burning vehicle's smoke screen kept the Germans from shooting back accurately. The German forces found themselves in an impossible tactical spot. Their tanks, thinking they would crush the weak American position, found they could not move forward without foot soldier support that Murphy was systematically taking down. German military thinking stressed combined arms operations, and without foot soldiers to shield them from close-up attacks, the tanks had to pull back rather than risk being alone. Technical Sergeant Morris Wald, watching through binoculars from the battalion command post, later reported, Murphy's fire was incredibly effective. He wasn't just spraying bullets. Every burst was aimed. He was picking off German infantry like he was at a carnival game. I saw him take down a whole squad that was trying to circle our position. Around 3 p.m., after 40 minutes of constant shooting, Murphy's ammo started to get low. The barrel was glowing red from the heat. The burning tank destroyer under him was sinking into the ground as its tracks and wheels melted. German foot soldiers had moved to within 10 yards of his spot. Private Charles Owen remembered, we could hear the lieutenant's 50 starting to slow down. He was running out of ammo. Some of the Germans must have realized it too because they started rushing forward. Murphy grabbed his carbine and started picking them off with that. Around 3:10 p.m., with his ammo almost gone and German infantry getting within 10 yards, Murphy made the most desperate call of the battle. He ordered the artillery to fire right on his position. The forward observer, Lieutenant Walter Weisening, at first said no, knowing it would mean certain death for Murphy. But Murphy insisted, I'm giving you a direct order. Fire on my position now. The first shells hit within 50 yards of the burning tank destroyer. The explosions threw frozen dirt and shrapnel everywhere. German infantry caught in the open were torn to pieces, but Murphy, out in the open on top of the vehicle, was also in the impact area. Shrapnel tore through his leg, his second injury of the day, but he kept firing the few rounds he had left. The mix of Murphy's direct fire and the artillery storm broke the German attack. The surviving foot soldiers, maybe 100 men, started to fall back toward Holzwehr. The tanks, without infantry support and facing more and more accurate artillery fire, turned around and pulled back. Around 3:20 p.m., after an hour of non-stop fighting, Murphy climbed down from the burning M10. His uniform was burned from the heat. Blood ran down his leg from shrapnel wounds. Behind him, the tank destroyer kept burning, finally blowing up 10 minutes after he left it. The battlefield before him was a terrible sight. German bodies were spread across the snow-covered fields. Military historians think 50 were dead with many more hurt. The surviving Germans were in full retreat, their officers unable to get them together for another attack. Murphy walked back to the trees where his men were waiting. According to Private Abramsky, he was calm. Scary calm. He asked if we had any wounded from the artillery, made sure everyone was okay, then sat down and lit a cigarette like nothing had happened. His hands weren't even shaking. Perhaps the most surprising part of the historical records about this event is the almost total lack of German first-hand stories. Even with a lot of research in German military archives, the Bundesarchiv, and veteran groups, no specific German soldier quotes diary entries or after-action reports about Murphy's stand have been found in available historical records. This silence is especially strange given the fight's intensity and the shock it must have caused among the attacking forces. Several things explain this lack of documents. The German units involved had about 50 casualties from Murphy's actions alone, likely getting rid of many possible witnesses. German division-level records from this time were often destroyed in the war's final months. The quick German retreat after the failed attack, described in American records as disheartened by their lack of progress, points to a demoralized force not likely to write down what they saw as a shameful tactical loss. The German units have been identified through operational records. The 2nd Mountain Division was the main infantry force, supported by parts of the 708th Volksgrenadier Division and the 285th Assault Gun Battalion. These were top-notch groups. The mountain soldiers, in particular, were experienced fighters with a lot of battle experience, making their failure against one defender all the more shocking to German tactical beliefs. The 2nd Mountain Division's war diary for January 26th only says, "Attack on American positions near Holzwihr, repulsed with heavy casualties. Enemy resistance stronger than expected." This short entry hides what must have been going on among the German soldiers. Elite mountain troops who had fought in Norway, Finland, and the Eastern Front had never seen anything like this. A single soldier who seemed unaffected by fear, tiredness, and the basic human need to save oneself. Post-war German military study included the battle in their report. Defense Against Superior Forces, published in 1965. The study pointed to several things that led to their loss: overconfidence because of their larger numbers, a lack of tactical flexibility when the first attack was stopped, and the failure of combined arms when tanks and infantry didn't work together well. The German forces never tried another attack on Company B's position. That night, under the cover of darkness, they pulled out from the area completely. Top-notch mountain troops who had been specially brought from Norway for this attack. Soldiers who had never retreated in 4 years of war pulled back without orders from their corps commander. The mental effect of being stopped by a single American soldier was more destructive than the physical losses. Murphy's stand at Holzwihr had effects far beyond the immediate tactical win. The successful defense allowed the 3rd Infantry Division to keep its hold on the key Riedwehr Forest, which controlled the ways to Holzwihr village. The German failure to break through meant the Colmar Pocket's days were numbered. Holzwihr itself fell to the 30th Infantry Regiment the next day, January 27, 1945. Within weeks, the entire German area west of the Rhine had been eliminated, taking 50,000 German troops out of the war and freeing Allied forces for the final attack into Germany. The fight showed that even skilled German units could no longer beat determined American resistance, no matter how much bigger their numbers were. General Jean de Lattre de Tassigny, leader of the French First Army, saw the importance. The defense of the Holzwihr approaches by the American 3rd Division, especially the remarkable action of Lieutenant Murphy, broke the back of German resistance in Alsace. The tactical lessons from Murphy's stand, particularly how effective combined artillery and automatic weapons were in defense, shaped American tactical thinking for the rest of the European campaign. French recognition came through the 3rd Infantry Division being allowed to wear the French Croix de Guerre in 2000. A memorial was put up at the battle site, making sure that French people would remember the young American who helped free their country. The official Medal of Honor citation, given by Lieutenant General Alexander Patch on June 2, 1945, gives the military's formal acknowledgement of Murphy's accomplishment. The citation's words, usually reserved in military papers, have trouble capturing the amazing nature of the action. He was alone and open to German fire from three sides, but his deadly fire killed dozens of Germans and caused their infantry attack to falter. For an hour, the Germans tried every available weapon to eliminate Second Lieutenant Murphy, but he continued to hold his position. The award ceremony near Salzburg, Austria, brought together surviving members of the 3rd Infantry Division to see their comrade get the nation's highest military honor. Brigadier General Ralph B. Lovett and Lieutenant Colonel Hallett D. Edson, who had recommended Murphy for the medal, stressed that Murphy's action had saved Company B from certain doom and allowed the division to hold important ground. Murphy's hesitation to see his actions as heroic stayed with him his whole life. When asked why he had climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, his answer was typically direct. "They were killing my friends." It was not a heroic act. "I figured if one man could do the job, why risk the lives of others?" Murphy's post-war fight with what was then called battle fatigue, now known as PTSD, makes his story especially relevant to modern views of combat's mental toll. He suffered from constant sleeplessness, recurring nightmares, and a state of high alert that led him to sleep with a loaded pistol under his pillow. Eventually, he moved to sleeping in his garage with the lights on, unable to stand darkness that reminded him of night combat. "I remember the experience as if I do a nightmare. A demon seemed to have entered my body," Murphy wrote about his battle experiences. His willingness to talk openly about these fights led to laws creating the Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio in 1973, 2 years after his death in a plane crash at age 45. Murphy's first marriage to Wanda Hendricks lasted only 16 months, ruined by his PTSD episodes. Hendricks later described, "He was two people. During the day he could be charming, funny, generous, but at night he became someone else. He'd walk through the house with a loaded gun. He'd sleep in the garage with the lights on because darkness reminded him of night patrols." Despite his own fights, Murphy became an early supporter for veterans suffering from combat-related mental injuries. In 1966, he wrote for the Saturday Evening Post, "I can't remember when I didn't have nightmares. They became part of my life, like breathing. But I was lucky. I could afford doctors, medication, therapy. What about the veteran who can't? What about the thousands coming back from Vietnam with the same problems?" Murphy's effectiveness at Holtzwihr was boosted by the weapon systems he used. The M2 Browning 50 caliber machine gun, designed by John Browning in 1918, was arguably the best heavy machine gun of World War II. Its 50 BMG cartridge could go through 1 inch of armor plate at 100 yards. Each round had terrible effects on human targets. The bullet's energy of over 13,000 foot-pounds at the muzzle could literally tear a human body apart. The M10 tank destroyer carried 51 rounds of 3-inch ammunition in its body, along with 1,000 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition and 300 gallons of gasoline. When the German 88mm shell hit, it set the fuel on fire, creating a blaze that reached temperatures over 1,000 degrees. The fact that the vehicle burned for over an hour without a major explosion was a miracle. Murphy was basically standing on a bomb with a lit fuse. The artillery support Murphy guided was just as important. The 105mm howitzers could fire a 33-pound high-explosive shell over 11,000 meters. Each shell created a blast area of 50 meters with shrapnel deadly to 200 meters. Murphy's ability to adjust this fire to within 50 yards of his own spot, danger close by any measure, multiplied his fighting power greatly. Military scientists have tried to figure out the chances of Murphy's survival at Holtzwihr. Given the German forces involved, 250 infantry with rifles and machine guns, plus 6 tanks with main guns and coaxial machine guns, about 10,000 rounds were fired at Murphy's position during the 1-hour fight. Even assuming poor aim due to distance and Murphy being hidden by smoke, statistical models show Murphy should have been hit 15 to 20 times. The physical work of using the M2 Browning under these conditions was immense. The weapon weighs 84 pounds and has a strong kickback. Murphy had to keep his balance on the burning vehicle while handling the weapon's recoil, all while being shot at from 3 sides. The smoke from the burning vehicle would have made breathing hard and aiming difficult. Military historians and psychologists have long discussed what made Murphy able to perform such amazing combat feats. Was it his poor background that taught him to survive at any cost? His hunting experience that made killing seem normal? or just being in the wrong place at the right time. Dr. Dave Grossman, author of On Killing and a top expert on combat psychology, gives this analysis. Murphy represented a perfect storm of factors. He had the technical skills from hunting, the drive from poverty, the emotional distance from early trauma, and most importantly, a protective instinct toward his men that overrode self-preservation. This view is backed by Murphy's own words. When asked why he climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, he always gave the same answer. They were killing my men. The personal nature of that statement shows Murphy's reason. This wasn't about tactics or strategy. It was about protecting the soldiers he led. Murphy himself saw the change that battle had made in him. In a 1968 interview 3 years before he died, he reflected, "People talk about that day like it was heroic. Maybe it was, but I became something inhuman that day. I turned into a killing machine. I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just a cold resolve to destroy." Audie Murphy's military record is still unmatched by any American soldier. He received every combat medal for bravery that the United States Army could give, some of them twice. His 33 medals included the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and 3 Purple Hearts, plus 5 medals from France and Belgium. But what Murphy truly left behind goes beyond medals. His support for veterans' mental health was decades ahead of its time. The Audie Murphy Memorial VA Hospital specializes in treating PTSD and other combat-related mental injuries. His autobiography, To Hell and Back, has helped thousands of veterans realize they're not alone in their struggles. Murphy's story has become part of American military culture. The U.S. Army Infantry School uses his action at Holtzwihr as a case study in defensive operations, leadership under fire, and the use of supporting arms. The Audie Murphy Club recognizes outstanding NCOs who show leadership qualities like Murphy's. Master Sergeant Ronald Johnson, president of the Fort Hood Audie Murphy Club chapter, explains why he is still relevant. Every generation of soldiers needs heroes. Examples of what's possible when ordinary people face extraordinary situations. Murphy shows our soldiers that you don't have to be 6 feet tall or come from a military family to be a warrior. You just have to care more about your buddies than yourself. Military professionals often discuss whether Murphy's stand could be repeated in modern warfare. Technology has completely changed combat. Satellites, drones, and precision weapons have made the battlefield transparent, where individual acts of heroism seem impossible. Yet recent wars suggest otherwise. In Afghanistan and Iraq, American forces repeatedly saw individual soldiers doing amazing acts similar to Murphy's. Staff Sergeant David Balavia's house-to-house fighting in Fallujah. Sergeant First Class Paul Smith's machine gun stand in Baghdad. All echo Murphy's willingness to face impossible odds. General Stanley McChrystal, former commander of Joint Special Operations Command, argues, "Technology changes war's character, but not its nature. War ultimately remains a contest of human wills." What Murphy showed at Holtzwihr, the willingness of one person to say no further regardless of the odds, that's ageless. At the U.S. Army's Maneuver Center of Excellence, Murphy's action teaches several key ideas: the importance of position, the combination of fires, and the mental side of combat. Murphy understood that killing enemy soldiers wasn't enough. He had to break their will to fight. His relentless, accurate fire convinced the Germans that moving forward meant certain death. While the world praised Murphy as America's most decorated soldier, the young Texan was fighting a different war, one against the demons that came home with him. The man who had shown no fear on a burning tank destroyer was scared of the darkness in his own mind. Murphy's widow, Pamela Murphy, who married him in 1951 and stayed with him until his death in 1971, gave unique insights. Audie carried invisible wounds that never healed. He'd wake up screaming, reliving battles from 20 years earlier, but he never stopped trying to help other veterans. The war never ended for Audie, but he turned his pain into purpose. This change of trauma into advocacy created lasting change. Murphy's public talk about PTSD helped establish that combat stress was a real medical condition that needed treatment, not a sign of weakness or cowardice. His support helped thousands of veterans get help they might have been too ashamed to ask for otherwise. On January 26, 1945, Second Lieutenant Audie Leon Murphy proved that one determined person could stop an army. His stand at Holtzwihr broke German ideas about American soldiers. These weren't the soft, spoiled boys of Nazi propaganda. They were the sons of farmers and factory workers, shaped by depression and hardship, who could be as tough as any warrior in history when protecting their friends. The silence in German records about that day says a lot. In their inability to explain or understand what happened, we see the deepest form of loss, not just tactical or physical, but mental and moral. They had met someone who was simply better at war than they were, and that realization broke something fundamental in their warrior identity. Today, the field outside Holtzwihr is peaceful farmland again. The marks of battle have healed. The shell holes are filled in, the blood washed away by decades of rain. But on January 26th each year, a small ceremony is held at the memorial marking Murphy's stand. French citizens, American veterans, and sometimes elderly Germans come together to remember the day one American soldier proved that bravery has no limits. Murphy's story reminds us that heroism isn't about being fearless. Murphy was scared by his own account. It's about acting despite that fear when others rely on you. It's about making a stand when retreating would be easier. It's about becoming, for one vital moment, bigger than yourself. In the end, that's why the Germans were stunned when one American soldier held off 250 Germans for over an hour alone. They had come across something that military science couldn't explain, that tactical thinking couldn't stop, that massive force couldn't defeat. The unbeatable human spirit in a 110-pound Texan who would rather die than let his friends be killed. His stand at Holtzwihr remains an eternal testament that one person at the right place and the right time with the right reason can change everything. The boy who hunted rabbits to feed his family became the man who stopped an army to save his friends. In war, as in life, that change from the ordinary to the extraordinary remains the most stunning truth of all.